Welcome everyone. I'm Tim. I'm the founder of the Health Optimisation Summit and also known as the UK's leading biohacker. Today we're joined by Dr. Patrick Porter, founder and CEO of BrainTap Technologies. Now it's the second time we've recorded together, so I'm really looking forward to spending this time with you today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tim. It's great to be here.
It's been a long time. Looking forward to hanging out again. It's been like, must be 2.5 years.
Yes.
So guys, just to bring you up to speed, if you don't already know who Dr. Porter is, he's an award-winning author, educator, researcher, entrepreneur, and speaker. He's been on the cutting edge of brainwave entrainment technology for over 32 years now. His newest brain training platform is BrainTap, and it's distinctively designed to activate the brain's neuroplasticity. So welcome.
Yeah. Great to be here.
So let's get straight into it, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
How can a health optimized lifestyle support brain health, and why is it so important?
Well, food is a key component, right? It's phase one. You can't outthink a bad diet. So you have to be eating smart. You also have to move and breathe. So, but the number three, what I call the third wave of wellness, is brain fitness. Because if you're in a hyper state of sensitivity, or you're in fight or flight, all those great nutritional products are going to just be flushed down the toilet. So we need to calm our brain, get our nervous system in tune with the wonderful foods we're consuming, and get up and move and breathe, and then we have a complete program.
Awesome. So one of the other things I'd like to just quickly touch on is, on your website, and I've heard you say it before, you're on a mission to better 1 billion brains. Like, tell me, how are you going to do that? Because that's a big number.
Well, the main way we're going to do it is with people like you, Tim. I mean, you're an influencer. You have a great group that's meeting in the UK. We're going to be there. And what we find is when you help one person, they go out and tell maybe 5 to 7 people. And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by actually proving the science and individually helping people maximize their brain function. And, you know, in this day and age, this is something we need, because we're being bombarded by, you know, everywhere we turn, they're trying to tell us what to think. We need to train ourselves how to think and how to get out of that fight or flight, get our amygdala back so that we can start creatively thinking instead of being hijacked all the time.
I think it's a really interesting point you say there, because brands that sell ball bearings need to have very, very big marketing budgets and strategies, because the ball bearing, while it has its applications, isn't really a product that you notice the benefits from immediately. And there's a lot of supplements or technologies out there that really need a lot of very heavy marketing. There's some products, and you know, there's quite a lot of them are at our conference this year because I hand select them, but there's some products that don't need that. You just need to put them in the right hands, like you say, and because the efficacy of them is what makes people talk about them. But I'm pretty sure not many people talk about the efficacy of a ball bearing unless it's, you know, in one of their household devices. They don't even know it's there. But the point is I think one thing that's distinctly clear for me with BrainTap specifically, which is why I invited you guys to exhibit, was because it just bloody works. It's amazing. I mean, I use it in my hyperbaric chamber, and I'm often quoted for saying this, and feel like it works so efficacious. It's so high in efficacy. For instance, chilling in the hyperbaric chamber, put on the BrainTap device, and I'm in between sleeping and awake, having vivid dreams, even though I know I'm awake and I'm conscious. And it's just perfect. And I think the combination of the things which you're going to go into in a minute, I'm sure, works perfectly. So I'll stop rabbiting on about that, but can you explain how brainwaves work and then how BrainTap taps into that?
Sure. First of all, the reason when you're in your hyperbaric that you're starting to get those lucid dreams is when you get into a heightened state of theta, which is a brainwave just before sleep, your brain is actually instructing your gut to create more GABA. GABA is the precursor to DMT. So we have studies going on right now in Brazil that shows that BrainTap modulates the 54 different neurotransmitters. So when you're experiencing that, you've trained the brain to be in sync. And that's what your brain does. It's kind of like a Wi-Fi network. We have 5 of them going on at one time. So Delta is the one that most people associate with, and it's part of deep sleep. If we don't get that, we don't open up the glial lymphomic system, and we don't produce enough serotonin, which is the feel-good, neurotransmitter as well. Most people meditate, they go to alpha, which is great. It's a great brainwave, and that's associated with acetylcholine. So each of these brainwaves is tied into a different neurotransmitter, like beta, where we're talking right now. The reason we have all these addictions, these negative addictions, like to sugar and to whether it be alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever it is, that's a dopamine addiction, and it's an exciter. So that's a stress hormone, really, or a stress transmitter. So they call it an adjutant. So, and then we have gamma. We now have in the BrainTap system gamma, because we did a psilocybin study with BrainTap, and we found some of them didn't want to do a psilocybin. So we created a digital version of it, and people were having trips. So now we put it in the session, and we're getting a lot of feedback for that. So what BrainTap does using light, sound, and vibration is mimic nature. So if you think about ancient traditions, they would do this as well, but they used, let's say they used a fire or a candle that is 10 hertz frequency. So the brain would actually receive that frequency from the candle. Even everything in the universe is vibrating and teeming with energy. And the more energy it has, the more effect it has on us. So when we go to the ocean, it's 10 hertz frequency. So we're imitating that using the vibrations of light, sound. And so our cells all have what's called chromophores on them, and they're always evaluating and absorbing energy. Some of that energy is good, some of it's bad. That's why, household lights, for instance, if they're not nice lights, they have dirty lights, then our body will still absorb that energy, but then our body has to deal with the toxins. So what BrainTap does is it's very specific tuned frequencies. The blue light is 470 meter tuned frequency. We've actually done studies with macular degeneration. We have 2 studies that show that it improves that immensely. So, but we do recommend that you have your eyes closed, but some people will open their eyes. We have lights in the ears that actually trigger, because those lights are not solid, even though they look to be, they are fluctuating at different Auger frequencies that instruct our nervous system. Our nervous system is much smarter than our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is busy paying our bills, while our subconscious is busy keeping our heart going, our breathing, our respiration, and monitoring the 75 trillion cells in our body. And it's evaluating everything around us. So BrainTap takes all that into account through 5 different variations. The light, sound, and vibration are just 2 of them. We also have sound, which is the music, very specific music that synchronizes the hemispheres. We call this the Mozart effect. And then we have words for those that want to have training. And the important part of that, people go, I don't want to hear the words. Well, if you don't have good thinking, you need the words, because we need to change the time track. Most people, they say that the average person is between 60 and 80,000 words, depending on if you're a man or a woman. Women do speak more than men, and even in their internal dialogue. And unfortunately, over 80% of them are negative. So we need to upgrade that thinking, just like you'd upgrade your computer. We got to get those thought viruses out of there and neutralize them. Yeah. And so we have those, and we also know it changes 2,300 gene expressions. So as we upgrade the biological system, we want to also upgrade the psychological system. So you have that powerful combination of positive thinking, which helps your immune system stay on point, and get rid of that optimistic negative thinking. If you take life, biohackers, one of the things, or health optimizers, what they do differently than other people is they look at life as a series of challenges. You have a positive outlook on life, where the general public typically looks at life as a series of threats. And of course, mainstream media doesn't do anything to offset that. They're exacerbating that problem. So BrainTap gets you outside of the everyday world and puts you in touch with that inner world, where you can start to regulate thoughts, actions, and beliefs, and create the kind of life you want.
Yeah. Junk light, junk food, good light, good food. It's interesting you touch on the acetylcholine point, actually, because one of the similarities between just about every nootropic that I've ever tested has the common factor that it increases or deals with acetylcholine in the brain better, which is, I'm a choline dominant type. And so I find that things like aniracetam obviously is my smart drug of choice, and choline and alpha GPC and acetylcholine, but they all have a similarity. And now I realize that BrainTap overlaps with that as well. So it explains why I naturally gravitate towards it compared to some of the other things out there, which is really interesting. Like a carnivore gravitates to meat because that's what their body needs and can deal with better. A vegan gravitates towards plants because that works for them better. I find that's the same with my BrainTap. So that explains a lot. Yeah. So thank you for that. That's awesome. So how do the brain waves, do you think, actually get out of sync?
Well, stress is the biggest factor. And when you think about what's happened in the last 2 years, they say dopamine, the increased dopamine and adrenaline that happens because of fear and anxiety, stress. We are social creatures too. We need socialization. So all of that was removed. They actually say that our brains, if you didn't do something about it, can shrink 3/4 of an inch with a year of stress. So just like it does at night when we sleep, right? We got to hydrate in the morning because it's that's part of the detox process. So in the if it shrinks, that's because the hippocampus is being taxed big time. And that's why under stress, you don't have good memory and things like that. So when we get out of sorts, usually one hemisphere becomes dominant because we're in that fight or flight. That's that amygdala that I talked about. We get hijacked and we start emotionally acting. We operate best when we have a balance between logic and emotion. Neither one is really good on its own. I mean, if you're too logical, then you won't do anything new. It has to be proven in science, and somebody before you had to do it. And but the right brain person might get too crazy and be too creative and maybe just want to surf all day. Those are the kind of things. So there's got to be that balance there. And when the balance isn't there, and I think also sitting is a big problem, because our nervous system is designed to move and breathe, and we're designed really to be outside when the light's on, which is our big sun, right? That's when that light's on, we're outside. In all of our mitochondria health, all of our, light is the most underprescribed nutrient on earth. So if we're not getting enough of it and we're sitting on our butts, so that means our nervous system isn't moving. There's a real problem. And so I think that those are a couple of things that happen that cause it. And then I think the biggest toxin that people consume is sugar, obviously. We're eating so much sugar that biologically we're being thrown off because there's no value in our foods. Our water is toxic, so we're not getting what we need. We need half our body's weight in ounces of water. All of these things are a cascade of events that assault our body on a daily basis. So health optimization isn't an option anymore. The only insurance policy we have is prevention. So there's no insurance. You're not going to get a pill or bottle or a potion that's going to heal you. You've got to start healing yourself every day.
For sure, for sure. And one of the things that you said that really resonates with me, actually, is something I say quite frequently, is we using technology to mimic nature. And that's what a lot of biohacking or health optimization is. It's, if you can't get out in the garden and ground all day long, you get grounding straps or a grounding mouse mat, or, if you can't get magnesium from your food, you supplement. I mean, these are all classed as biohacks. It's obviously the system thinking approach of applying these various things. And that's BrainTap in terms of, I guess, syncing the brain waves. So this is going to be an interesting one to hear the answer from. So how does BrainTap sync the brain waves? I mean,
well, I'll tell you about one of the research projects we just finished. I'm actually presenting it here to our National Institute of Health in 2 weeks. They accepted 3 of our papers. We had 12 published papers over COVID because we got a chance to finish them all up. We're not running around being crazy. And one of them was we did a pilot study with women that all had dementia. We noticed that their brain was out of sync. That means most importantly, their frontal lobe. It should be about 10 volts energy between the right and left hemisphere of the frontal lobe. If it is, then communication happens very fluidly. What we found out was the left hemisphere was moving a lot slower than the right hemisphere. And so what happens at that point is when you think of a memory, most people think of their brain like a filing cabinet. That's not true at all. It's more like a production studio. It has to go get all that information from about 8 different places in the brain, and then it reproduces that information at the speed of light. You know, it's faster than thought, because we're thinking. They've now proven that we think something before we think something. It's like there's something happening. There's consciousness there doing something before we do something, which is kind of spooky, you know, this quantum physics thing that's happening now. We're starting to understand it. So what we did is we had the women, these were all women, 55, 65, all diagnosed by their doctor, all cognitive tests with Cambridge Science testing. They all did all the skills tests. They were bad. They were on their way to full-blown Alzheimer's. In fact, they were all told, there's nothing we can do. The medical is really good about sending you home and saying, get your affairs in order, you know, it's not going to be good for you. So we put them on BrainTap 3 times a day. In the morning, it's really important that you start your brain with what we call SMR training. That's a brainwave. There's actually 16 different brainwaves, but most people only talk about 5. But between beta and alpha, there's one that as you get better looking and more intelligent with age, it starts to atrophy. So these things, and that's the part that really works on the hippocampus to get long-term memories into short-term memories and vice versa. So we had them do that in the morning. We call it digital coffee because it wakes up the brain. It gives you the same energy feel as a coffee, but it's all natural. It's all done with your electrical system. We are electrical beings, so we need to start exercising that as well. That's why we call it brain fitness. In the middle of the day, we had them do a series of sessions that we created specific for this, where we sped up the left hemisphere, we slowed down the right hemisphere. We can do this with BrainTap. It's actually called the New Mind series, but we don't recommend that a non-professional use that, because we got to know that the brain needs it. And then, so we had them do that in the middle of the day. At night, we had them do our better sleep program, because we also have to regulate for sleep. Some people, they've got so much dopamine going because they didn't turn the lights down, they didn't have a nighttime routine, and they think all they got to do, like a light switch, is turn it off and automatically their nervous system's going to shut down, which you and I know that's not true at all. Our brain, some people can do it, but then eventually it will backfire on them. But we can do it when we're kids, you know, we can be going pell-mell across the yard and get at the front room, start watching a movie, pass out. They go, what happened, Johnny? Well, that's because they were already exhausted.
Yeah.
You know, they worked out all day, you know. So, but in 6 weeks, what we did, when we came back 6 weeks later, the most incredible thing happened. Their brain was synced. We already measured it in the middle. We knew it was going to go that way. We had them do the cognitive testing. We sent them back to their doctor even. Their doctors, at 100% of their doctors said, your brain's synced. We must have misdiagnosed you, because it couldn't have been that little machine you put on your head. There's no way that happened. But we published the paper, and now we have a couple different universities, including one of the largest universities in Brazil, that took it on as a project because of our pilot study, where 100% of the women had synchronized brains, no longer diagnosed with dementia, and they had 49% neuroplastic change, which we can measure. We can't measure each neuron. That would be, we don't have that technology, but we measure as energy. And so they can extrapolate with a mathematical equation. If you have this much energy in your brain, and then 6 weeks later, you have this much energy in your brain, then there was a 49% increase in mitochondrial energy at the brain level, which means they were thinking better, acting better, and responding better. So when you think better, perform better, and sleep better, everything gets better in your life.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. That's really astounding results. I mean, you must be very proud to see how your baby has grown into this thing that's changing people's changing people's lives, and, you know, cognition and energy and happiness, and it must be very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, even one of your speakers, Ben there, who's coming in, Ben Greenfield, where I was part of he's doing a documentary called Biohacking Happiness, because when you have energy, you're happier. So we talked about that. You know, when you're basically low energy, you're not going to have the emotional state to be there for your relationships. You're not going to be there for your job. Yeah. And I love it. I mean, I think this whole health optimization feature that's going on in the world today with the good number of people, I think it's because we realize that the industry is not there for us. They They're there to make money, and we're here to optimize health. And so that's the big deal.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how I mean, obviously emergency care and everything is amazing. It advanced so much, but I think chronic health issues and various other things that you can't necessarily put a monetary, you can't get money from, have been left. And unfortunately, I mean, it's changing though. The tide is changing. You're seeing it more and more. And I think, during the recent events, let's say, people are realizing that actually, there is a big gap. There's a big gap between chronic and emergency, and this needs sorting. So, that's a commonality between a lot of the successful biohacking brands, actually, that they are, instead of finding a product to fill a need, it's actually there's a need, and then finding the product really to help with that. And it's actually really, and it comes from a genuine place. Like most of the stories behind it, and say, well, actually, we realized that this was such a problem in the world, we created something to fix that, opposed to people saying, what product can we think of? I think that's one of the really, really nice things about our space that we work in with a lot of colleagues. There's some incredible stories of how these things have come and grown. So that's awesome. So is brain tapping classed as meditation? Is it guided imagery? Or is it both, or something in between? How would you describe it as a?
Well, it is both. It has a specific, we call it FLOW, FLO, focused life outcomes, because we have 1,800 sessions. So you can pick and choose. And just to kind of tag on to the last thing we were talking about is we actually have 3 different big deals going on right now. We have 2 insurance companies in the US that have approved payment for BrainTap in 1 year on the app for anyone diagnosed with stress disorders. And we also have one that's approved it for TBIs, because we have a TBI study that'll blow your mind. And then we have that digital drug study going on in Brazil, where Anvisa, which is their FDA, which is their governing body for these kind of things, they actually paid $250,000 to pay for BrainTap to be researched because of the preliminary results. And we're getting phenomenal results. So I think this optimization is here to stay. We just had to go to the right places. When the insurance companies start losing so much money, they're going to realize that we have the answer here. You've done a lot of research for them, right? I mean, what you're doing, you're posting it. They didn't have to pay for all that research. Now they have a proven model. And when the medical community folds, because it's bankrupt anyway, it's not going to work, it's not sustainable, they're going to come to people like you, Tim, and say, hey, tell us how we can move somebody from being in a state of toxicity like you were with the dental work and back to being health optimizer. And I think it's not the doctors. Unfortunately, the doctors, if you got a Jaguar payment or you've got a boat payment, you're going to, prescribe that next surgery, maybe. Unfortunately, some of them are like that.
Yeah, completely. And I think, it's amazing how the world's changing, but it's going slowly. But it's nice to see these things rolling out, and the system is definitely changing, and more people are being brought to light from having that approach, the bias to money opposed to health. So it's amazing that you're helping on this mission, as with a lot of our biohacking and health optimization colleagues. So what's one thing that everyone can do today to support their brain health, would you say?
Well, there's a lot of free things you can do. One of them is breath work. We had 2 published papers with PubMed. We did with Bhopal, India. One of our board members he heads up physiology there. And we did some pranayamas, and we showed that you could also do the same thing we did with BrainTap. It just takes longer and it takes more work, but you can balance your brain with breath work. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. And I tell people, do like breath of fire in the morning, because you need that digital coffee, and that's the one that'll really light up your nervous system. And then you can do the 4-8 breath at night, so you can exercise that. And those are free things you can do right now. I mean, if they come to your summit, they're going to learn a lot of different free things they can do, because every speaker has a plethora of different things that you can do, plus whatever they might think is their hero technique. Obviously I would want the world to be using BrainTap, but not everybody can afford it. So there are a lot of things you do. Get up and move and breathe, shut the shades, turn on the music and dance. I mean, if you don't know Tai Chi and yoga, just start moving your body. Magic will happen when you start breathing and moving.
Yeah, here, for sure. with breath work or breathing exercises and things. So we've actually got Patrick McGowan speaking on breath work at the event, which is going to be interesting because it does seem profound for a lot of people. And I think that's what, I mean, I do breath work, I do hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I then stack it with obviously my BrainTap, as I've already mentioned, which it really does have a compounding effect when you do stack these things together. So that's awesome. I really love that you've recommended something that they can do for free. But also, if you don't need to do something for free and you do have the resources, then obviously BrainTap device and the software is awesome, which I personally vouch for on a daily basis, pretty much. So yeah, it's been really nice to catch up with you, actually. I'm looking forward to you guys being at the conference in about 2.5 weeks time now. So it's getting close. But in the meantime, where can people find you? What's the best resource?
Well, they can follow me at Dr. Patrick Porter, and also at BrainTap at BrainTap Tech. They can, for anybody who's come to the conference, they can take a free ride on the equipment. That's one of the benefits of being there. We can also measure your nervous system. We're bringing technology over that can measure 9 different parameters of your nervous system. So if you're wondering how your biohacks are going or your health optimization is going, we always find that your groups are always the best, but it's always good to get a test from an outside. It's a little disappointing when we go to medical conferences, they're all sick. I mean, it's terrible. We see some, but at the health optimization courses, we always see people are taking care of themselves. And it's good to know that you're not, when somebody said, I always remember my brother who's really healthy. He's been that way as our educational director. Somebody, Michael, I can't believe you haven't had a candy bar in 30 years. And they said, that must be hard. And he said, no, it'd be hard for me to put on 30-pound weight jacket and wear it around all day. And that's what people aren't understanding, so come on out, see at the Optimisation Summit. We'll do some things, but if you're not, follow us on social media. We're always giving tips and tricks. And I have a lot of different short videos that are really informative. A lot of things you can do on your own without buying BrainTap. There's a lot of things you can do, but you'll also hear, we have people all over the world now using BrainTap, especially in sport. From soccer to hockey to basketball to our football here in America, all of those things are happening, and you can follow some of these great athletes because they realize the benefit of recovery, and that's where we specialize. Most people know how to push their body to the limits, but they don't know how to recover, and that's what I think is the missing link in this optimization programs.
For sure. If we don't relax and we don't recover, if we don't recover, we don't heal. If we don't heal, we can't run the next day properly, and it's all a circular issue. So yeah, no, completely agree. So the website is braintap.com.
Yes.
You're Dr. Patrick Porter, that's Dr. Patrick Porter on Instagram, and BrainTap Tech. And obviously in the show notes, we have the rest of the details. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on today. Patrick, it was really great to see you again. I'm looking forward to seeing you and giving you a big hug after all this time has passed. But yeah, excellent. All right, well, thanks for joining us. And
okay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks again.
All right, take care.